Hi, everyone. My name is Sam Bisno. I'm a graduating senior at Obama Academy in Pittsburgh, and I'm the outgoing youth governor of Pennsylvania. I want to welcome everyone who's participating in this town hall live here on Zoom, as well as anyone tuning in on the Facebook Live page. If you are here in the webinar, we're asking that you keep your mics muted just because Zoom sometimes gets overzealous and will show your face even if you're just coughing in the background. And we want to make sure that everything stays streamlined here today. And what an exciting opportunity it is to have this youth-driven town hall with Lieutenant Governor Fetterman and Second Lady Gisele Fetterman. I live in Pittsburgh, so the Fettermans are very familiar to me and my neighbors. And they're familiar because they've been working in our community to lift up the voices of the underrepresented for as long as I can remember, and certainly longer than that. Lieutenant Governor Fetterman, of course, was the mayor of Braddock for well over a decade prior to his current position, and Gisele Fetterman is deeply involved in the not-for-profit community. So we're really fortunate to have this opportunity to speak with them, pick their brains. And I think it really is an important opportunity for two reasons. Everyone is impacted by this pandemic, no matter who you are, but students are uniquely impacted in a few ways. More than having our graduation ceremonies and our proms disrupted, we're now facing a serious learning gap that threatens to mar our generation indefinitely. That's only exacerbated by students that lack access to technology for at-home learning. Many students have parents or guardians that are now experiencing joblessness, and the economy in general is in flux. So financial security is thrown into question. For me personally, we're now re-examining whether my college choice is financially responsible. Students are being forced to make the difficult decision between venturing outside and risking infection or staying home and going without lunch because the only place they have to go for food is their school. And students just a little bit older than those here today are now graduating college and facing an uncertain job market and are saddled with debt. Which brings me to the second reason I think today is so important. Students have just as much of a stake in what the world will look like after COVID-19 as adults do. This pandemic is truly unprecedented in scale, and although we certainly have averted a much worse outcome than the one we're living in thanks to some great leadership both within the state and the country, there's no doubt that our preparation for and our response to this virus could have been better. More than that, this virus has laid bare deep inequalities and injustices in our society that existed long before we heard of the coronavirus. And I think I speak for many of my peers when I say that we're not satisfied with going back to normal. That we as youth want to build a state and a country and a world that's better off after this whole thing than when we began. So all that to say that it's important that youth discussions moving forward, and that today is a great step towards that. So thank you again to the Fettermans for taking this step, and thank you to our sponsors of this meeting, the Pennsylvania Statewide After-School Youth Development Network, Poseidon, Allegheny Partners for Out-of-School Time Programs, APOST, Pennsylvania School-Age Child Care Association, and the Pennsylvania YMCA Youth and Government Program, with additional support from Pennsylvania 4-H. Of course, we've received dozens of submissions for questions today, and we'd love to get to all of them, but we only have time for 10. So at the end of this call, we're going to have a training on how to continue to advocate with our elected officials beyond today, and that'll be a great chance to get those questions answered that you won't get to ask today. So with that, I won't delay any longer, and I'll pass it off to Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman and Second Lady Gisele Fetterman for their opening remarks. Thank you.
Sam, thank you for that incredibly eloquent and passionate introduction. And let me just say congratulations on your graduation and everyone's impending graduation. And I was the class of 1987, to put that in perspective. We were still listening on cassette tapes, and it's a long time ago, but I can't imagine how surreal it must be to be graduating, whether it's college or high school, during a pandemic. It's new territory for all of us. So congratulations to everybody. My wife and I are delighted to be here. And you brought up a lot of points in your introduction about inequality and this idea that it's exposed and laid bare a lot of it. Well, I was mayor of a community for 14 years that is rampant inequality. And now I'm chair of the Governor's Commission on inequalities within certain communities during this pandemic. And to your point, we, the governor, and we are committed to making sure that we address these inequalities during the pandemic and that we don't go back to the status quo after hopefully we defeat this virus. So thank you for the opportunity to have us here. And we're delighted to be here.
Hi, my name is Jordan Price, and I am an 11th grade student at Propel NG Street High School, and I'm also a member of Propel School Student Action Team. And I would like to just thank you both, Lieutenant Governor and Second Lady Fetterman, for your remarks right now and also joining us today for this Zoom call. So I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty right now. I'm trying to pull up the questions, and I will be introducing the students who are going to be asking you questions today.
I just want to say how impressive you guys all are, coordinating, navigating all these changes. And, you know, when Sam mentioned how many students are, you know, their education is being affected, I read that in Philadelphia, less than half of the students have been logged on to begin their virtual learning. And I just think of the impact that will have in their lives and how unfair that is.
Okay, so before we, thank you, and before we get into the questions, I just want to give a few of the main themes for the question and answer part of the town hall. The first one is the impact of COVID-19, what it means to be a young person during this time, and also the impact on after school and school programs and career readiness based off of COVID-19. So the first person that we have asking a question is Isaac. Isaac, if you can unmute your microphone and ask your question, that would be great.
Hello, I'm Isaac Daniels, and I'm also a senior at Pittsburgh Obama, and I was involved in Pennsylvania Youth and Government. My question is, as Sam and you alluded to in your opening addresses, COVID-19 has shown deep inequities in our system, and recently President Obama addressed this in a speech he gave to the high school class of 2020. He said that this pandemic has revealed underlying issues that existed in our society long before the pandemic, including problems ranging from income inequality to a fundamentally flawed healthcare system. Could you comment on these problems currently and how the state plans to learn from COVID-19 and address these problems when the pandemic is over?
Sure, that's a great question, and congratulations on your impending graduation. The inequalities I was in your situation, only I was graduating graduate school 21 years ago, and I decided that I wanted to spend my professional career after coming out of graduate school to work and address these systemic inequalities in our society. And that's what brought me to Braddock now 19 years ago. So I can't say that it's been a surprise to have them revealed on such a wholesale manner as the virus has. But this is something that is day in and day out in communities like Braddock, where my wife and I are now, and where I was honored to represent as mayor for 4 terms here as well too. And this idea that this is rampant all across Pennsylvania in a lot of different communities. Those of you that are in Western Pennsylvania know that there are plenty of communities and plenty of neighborhoods, whether in Pittsburgh or in the region, McKeesport, Duquesne, Clareton, Braddock, North Braddock, Rankin, you know, all of these are deeply mired in inequality. And in Philadelphia, you have, as my wife alluded to, less than half the students have received any educational interaction of any kind since the states moved into stay-at-home back in March. And that is profound. And the ramifications of that are enormous. And let me also state again that we don't know as a state exactly how many of our students have broadband access now. And we don't know exactly how many of our students have the means to interface with their teachers in terms of technology over a broadband connection, if that exists. And that goes for communities, urban communities, and that goes for rural communities where there's not even the infrastructure for broadband. And we are hurtling towards a school year in late August and September where we don't know what that's going to look like. And the concern for me and our commission is we could have another lost year of instruction. And that could amplify the achievement gap in even more dramatic and stark terms. And then you compound that with the fact that thankfully evictions have been suspended at least through July. But what's going to happen when there's 5, 6, 7 months of rent that's been unpaid? And how long can that continue? And what's going to happen where a lot of these households haven't been able to find employment or be able to pay rent? And you're going to be confronted with this massive convergence of all of these things, and they're all their origins are steeped in inequality. And we as a state have to confront that, and that's going to require resources. And we're already looking at a state that right now for our fiscal year already is looking at multi-billion-dollar deficits. So the challenges that your class, the graduating class and young people are going to face are things that have never been actually seen before. I mean, this is a true black swan scenario where a pandemic has virtually shut down and has affected every facet of our lives. And the inequality that exists are going to continue to amplify. And another point, I started a lot of youth programming here in Braddock during my time as mayor. And a lot of those programs are critical. In fact, in some cases, they were the only income source for a household during their summer jobs here with us. And a lot of this programming is not going to be possible because of pandemic guidelines, or they might get cut budgetarily speaking. So the fallout from this is going to be profound. And one of the things that the governor and I and the leadership team is trying to grapple with, and if not stay in front of, is what does this mean for these particularly vulnerable communities across Pennsylvania? And the two that are really jumped out at us so far, well, three actually, are testing. The fact that now we just announced that you can get tested for COVID regardless of your insurance status, and it won't cost you anything. And two, education, and then also housing.
Thank you so much for that response, Lieutenant Governor. The next person that will be asking a question is Nakoya. Can you please unmute your mic and ask your question?
Yes. Hi, I'm Nakoya Wilson, and I'm with the Homewood Children's Village Scholar Project. I'm a 9th grade student at Westinghouse High School. A lot of students in the Commonwealth may not have access to online learning tools, or their schools and after-school programs don't have the resources or platforms to move to online classes. So how will the state make sure that students continue to get an education if we can't go back to in-person school or summer learning programs? And how will the state ensure that the available hardware and online tools can also be used by after-school providers?
Again, that's another excellent question. And let me just say that you are thinking in exactly the same terms as we are in the government right now. Is that we've realized about 6 weeks ago, and we started this commission to address those concerns. Is like what's this going to look like? And to your point, we don't know right now exactly how many households have broadband and the means in terms of like a laptop or iPad to interface. And we have to determine what that is. And currently right now, because of stimulus funds, there's about $500 million to help school districts match and scale up their students' access to both broadband and technology. But another aspect that quite frankly is another challenge is that a lot of these households have one breadwinner, and they're often frontline workers that are working, and it's going to be making at-home instruction that much more difficult. I mean, this is a true once-in-a-century kind of scenario here, and if we don't do our best to get out in front of it and get our arms around it, it could have profound, lasting damage to the academic abilities of an entire generation that could lose or have significantly reduced learning experience not from basically March of this year through to when we're able to return back to full classroom scheduling the way it was pre-pandemic level. And anybody, and I think that the highest compliment I can pay the young people that are on this call and in Pennsylvania is to say we don't exactly know what the school year looks like coming forward in September. And that's the honest truth. This is a novel coronavirus. We don't know exactly how it's going to behave. We don't know exactly what it's going to do in terms of, is it going to go into remission the way other viruses behave during the summer? What would the protocols look like to return? There's a lot that's up in the air, and there's a lot of misinformation, and there's a lot of confusion. But what is true is that if we are back in school in September, it's going to be radically different than it was before the pandemic hit. And if we're not, and it's got to be better than where we're at now in terms of instruction and not really having a clue. It's utterly unacceptable that roughly half the students in, say, the Philadelphia district have received no instructional interface or interaction whatsoever. And that doesn't even count food and homelessness and all these other issues and unemployment in the household. It is profound. And these are issues that we are constantly discussing and contemplating. Our committee meets 2 times a week, and we issue reports to the governor directly once a week, and we will be doing a release based on what are the emerging top concerns and where we need to be. But roughly, as I alluded to earlier, it's testing and broadband and technology access for students, and also this impending crisis in homelessness, because so many people are months and months now behind through no fault of their own in rent here across Pennsylvania.
Thank you so much. The third question that we have for today was provided by a student named Mickey, but they are not here with us today, so I will be reading it for her. So her question was, what does Pennsylvania foresee the new normal changes will be pertaining to school, summer camp, and after-school activities? Will virtual activities become standard practice if summer camps cannot physically meet? And what is the possibility that schools and after-school programs will not return in the fall? And if so, how can we prepare now?
Yeah, a great question. And I would never want to bestow a sense of certainty in an environment where that's just not possible right now, quite frankly. No one knows what things are going to look like. And, you know, we have parts of Pennsylvania that could conceivably go into the green phase. Meanwhile, we have, you know, our largest city and one of the country's largest cities still at stay at home. So Pennsylvania is a big state, and the circumstances on the ground vary greatly. So no one can tell you right now exactly what, you know, after school program is going to look like, what the school year is going to look like. But what we do know is that there's a lot of people thinking about it, a lot of people trying to plan. But right now, there's no certainty on what that looks like. And I would not want to give or point somebody in a false direction, because we don't know. That's the honest truth.
I'll share from personal experience, at least in the Pittsburgh area, every summer camp that I had signed up my kids for has been canceled. I got email after email canceling all their summer camps.
And I'm concerned, like the Dormont pool and the public pools and splash parks here in the Pittsburgh area where we're a part of are closed. And that concerns me deeply. I understand the public health aspects of it, but kids need places to go. They need to cool off. They need to have activities. And I'm deeply concerned about that, what that looks like for the summer. And that's another part of how the inequality is being amplified and magnified during this COVID crisis. Like the idea that a splash park could be closed, or a playground would be closed, or a swimming pool, a public pool is going to be closed. I can't, you know, I don't think that's, I mean, the Dormont pool is one of the area's oldest, and it opened in 1920, and it's never been closed until this summer. And it's profound. And I honestly don't know what this summer is going to look like. And it concerns me deeply, both as lieutenant governor, but more as a parent, quite frankly.
That is so true. Really, truly, thank you for that. Thank you for that. The next question is going to be given by Michelle. If you could take your mute off and ask your question, please.
Yeah, hi. My name is Michelle from the Youth and Government Program, and I come from a low-income immigrant family that has been financially impacted by business closures during the COVID-19 pandemic. So, as Lieutenant Governor, what do you think the Pennsylvania State Legislature has done well to protect people like me, and how do you think they can do better?
Honestly, the Pennsylvania Legislature hasn't done enough, and it's constantly in flux and chaos because it's a divided House. And right now, this virus has been made political. Unfortunately, that's the reality. And I don't think we should be arguing about the politics of it. We should be concerned about families just like yours. I'd really like my wife, came from and grew up in a household very much like you described. Would you like to?
Yeah, I mean, I think about if this pandemic had occurred when I was a child, my mom was a housekeeper. She cleaned houses and hotels. She would have been absolutely out of work. And we were undocumented, which means we wouldn't have been eligible for any kind of support. I don't know that our family would have made it through a pandemic had it occurred when I was a child. So thinking about these families keeps me up at night, every night, worry about them.
And despite being in the pandemic, my wife has continued her efforts to distribute food to families that are experiencing food insecurity throughout this. But to your point, Michelle, it's devastating, quite honestly. And the legislature hasn't done enough, and it's because it's divided, and there's so little that we can agree on. But what I can say is that the governor is always at the forefront of this effort to provide as many resources and as much assurance, like extending evictions, preventing the utility shutoffs and evictions, and generating millions of dollars towards additional food resources and other things that help families. But it hasn't been enough. And to my wife's point, like, what are a lot of these families doing? Like, when you have miles of cars, when you have a free food distribution that you've seen out in our part of the state and elsewhere, I mean, it's profound. And the state hasn't done enough, but it's just a devastating time. And we would be much more effective if we were able to be less divided.
Thank you. Our fifth question will be given by Lori, two students, Lori and Audrey. If you two could unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello, my name is Audrey Ferry, and I'm the Vice President of Operations on Pennsylvania 4-H State Council.
And my name is Lori Enders, and I am the Secretary of the Pennsylvania 4-H State Council.
As 4-H members and State Council officers, understanding the importance of agriculture in the state, we would like to know:
how is the Commonwealth assisting farmers during this time and helping with food insecurities and food deserts for youth and families?
Great question. A lot of these rural counties, the governor has moved them the most rapidly to yellow phase. That allows more economic development to return to these communities. Increased testing for farm workers. We've seen outbreaks in a lot of the processing plants among workers as well too, and also coordinating housing in dormitories and other alternative housing arrangements. So these workers, if they are infected, are able to stay off-site so they don't bring the virus home to their families as well too. And I just want to salute the rural counties and our farmers. They have performed magnificently throughout all this. That's one of the things that our food supply has not suffered greatly during this pandemic going forward. But these food deserts, I can tell you on these briefing calls every morning, that's one of the first topics that's discussed is the food plans in these smaller rural counties, and constantly keeping the ear to the ground to address the need and the conditions on the ground with respects to food insecurity, and directing resources towards those counties and those families that need those resources. It's front and foremost, the Ag Secretary, every day during these briefing calls, and it's actively monitored and addressed.
I would just like to thank you both again, Lieutenant Governor Fetterman and Second Lady Fetterman. I'm now going to pass it over to Taylor for our final round of questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Taylor Koda. I'm a huge fan. When my family first immigrated here from Russia, they actually lived in Braddock and they owned boarding houses, and then they saw the community completely collapse, and you, when you were mayor, really changed it around. So we're just huge fans. And this is I'm here mostly today because I'm just really passionate. Like, I personally am a member of a Girl Scout troop, and we're seeing that all around us. Like, a lot of food pantries are having shortages because they can't buy in bulk. So that's why this is important to me. So now I'll introduce the next person to ask the question. The question 6 shall be said by Taya. Is Taya here?
She told me she's having an issue right now with her thing. She can't get on.
Okay. I can just read the question for Taya. Taya's question was, how do you anticipate COVID-19 will bring changes to cyber school legislation?
That's a tough one. Nobody knows. I know that's one of the questions people have are we going to see a significant migration of students towards established cyber charter schools? And quite frankly, we don't know what the answer is to that. It wouldn't be unreasonable to think that that's a possibility. And right now, there is uncertainty. Nobody knows what this start of this school year looks like, quite frankly. So nobody knows what that's going to change. But I know the governor previously, before the pandemic started, was that the cyber schools are an important option, but they are also a drain financially in terms of the amount of resources, the cost per student as well too. So bringing those costs in line with things that allow the homeschool district to recoup some of those resources and allow a student an effective online learning experience as well too, kind of balancing those two competing interests.
And thank you for sharing your Braddock story, Taylor.
Yeah. Thank you. This question 7 will be said by Brenna.
Hi, I'm Brenna Rubel. I go to Seneca Valley High School, and my school has extracurricular and vocational classes like cooking and pottery, and also a partnership with a nearby VOTEC school that offers career education and stuff like car repair and hairdressing and construction, which are all really hard to teach virtually because of the lack of resources kids have at home. So how is the state going to ensure access to these opportunities for students to get the education that they need?
The honest answer is we're not sure. To your point, I don't know how you can teach hairdressing virtually. I mean, because right now there's not any part of Pennsylvania where you can actually get a haircut right now, period. You know, and I just want people to understand. Like I see online, people have accused me and the governor, because we're bald, of wanting to keep barbershops closed because we don't have hair, so it doesn't matter. And that's just not true. You know, like I just want everybody to understand that everybody misses normal. You know, I don't care if your family is more conservative or more, liberal or Democrat, Republican, whatever. None of that matters. What matters is that we have been confronted by a virus that no one has ever seen before. And it has changed our life in fundamentally profound ways. And nobody has an exact answer on how we can teach virtual hairdressing and cooking and some of these other classes, because we've never had to confront that. Especially during a time when there's 100 other things that we have to confront. The hope is that we're able to bring the virus to a sufficient level of activity that we can regain a lot of the normal routine, and we can begin in some of that instruction more in person. But there is no certainty in terms of what it's going to look like a month from now, 2 months from now, or 3 months from now.
Thank you, Brenna. So the next question will be asked by Nick.
Hello, I'm Nick Petroff. I'm in 6th grade at Pocono Mountain School District. I am also a Boy Scout in Troop 89, working on my citizenship in the Community Merit Badge. And my question is, how can the youth participating in this meeting and beyond best help shape the policy and work with elected officials as vital decisions are being made during this time in regards to school, after school, summer camps that impact our lives?
Yeah. Well, Nick, are you on your way to being an Eagle Scout, just out of curiosity?
Yes.
Yeah. So when will you be an Eagle Scout?
I don't know yet.
Okay, well, hopefully soon. But, you asked a great question. And Eagle Scouts, overall have just an amazing career trajectory. And I would just invite each and every one of you on this call, and anyone that's watching this, like use this pandemic as an example. Like, what do you like? What do you like? What do you see that you like that's been done, or that you disagree with, or how would you do it differently? And you know, because we need you in public service. I know the President Obama said that the curtain's been pulled back and you can see leadership and some of the decisions being made, and it's like, that's true. And this idea that there's some round table where these decisions are made and everything, there's perfect knowledge, just isn't true. You know, like I said, this is a lot of unknown variables in play here. And this is going to reshape public policy and public service for a generation or more. This is unprecedented. One of the things that I've done is I've read books on the 1918 pandemic that struck America and the world over 100 years ago, and how that changed society, and use this as an incredible opportunity to kind of study public policy, study how public officials have responded. Hey, what's Florida doing? What's Michigan doing? What's Pennsylvania doing? And it's an amazing learning opportunity in terms of what young people can do and take from this pandemic to say, hey, this is what I agree with and what I like, or hey, I see this more inequality and this is gonna, you know, I want to spend my career working to push against that. So it's an incredible time of flux, but there's also that opportunity, a once in 100-year opportunity to see things that have never been seen in many generations.
And how you guys brought this meeting together and are asking questions, that alone shows exemplary leadership. And that's the leadership that is going to be needed. It's, you know, your viewpoints and your perspectives are so important. So please continue to voice them and see what you wish had been done differently in your own experiences, because we need those voices.
The next question will be asked by Catherine.
Katie isn't on right now.
Catherine's not on? Okay, so I'll just read Catherine's question. Catherine's question was, what information can you provide to help prepare our youth going to the workforce that has a record amount of job loss in a struggling economy? How will this affect our futures? What will happen if we can't go back to school in the fall?
And the honest answer is we don't know what that looks like. There's nearly 2 million of our fellow Pennsylvanians are on unemployment right now. And to put that in perspective, that's 20 times more than any other monthly total since these records have ever been kept. And if the record snowfall that you've ever had was 30 inches, it would be equivalent of having 400 inches of snow. And that is a dramatic an event here. And this idea that somebody can give you, like, there's a book that you can order on Amazon or you could read at your local library and say, so you're looking for a job during a pandemic. It's like, the truth is, it's never happened before. And you guys are the tip of the spear in terms of young people entering the job market, young people, you know, with their educational transitions, whether it's out of high school or going into college. What does your freshman year in college look like? I mean, who knows? When I was your age, I was getting ready to go to Ocean City, and I was listening to Poison on a cassette, and I had a mullet. You know, I mean, it's like, and you guys are asking insightful, high-level questions and talking public policy. So you're light years ahead of me, that's for sure. And this idea that anyone knows what the job market's going to look like, you know, when you're graduating or going into college, it's profound, and it's going to require a lot of you to just give it your best shot, and also understand that the direction that you're going to take is going to be imperfect, because no one knows what this looks like, because our society hasn't experienced it on this level since 1918.
Thank you. The last and final question will be said, question 10 will be said by Taya Scott.
Hi, I'm Taya Scott. I attend Commonwealth Charter Academy. As Lieutenant Governor, what authorities do you have over education in Pennsylvania? What will you do with the feedback you have gathered from this virtual town hall event?
Well, anyone's authority over the educational system in Pennsylvania, it's a collective effort, whether it's the legislature in terms of the House, the Senate, the governor, the education secretary. We're all part of the same team, and we all have different opinions and views on our educational system. But one thing that we all agree, whether you're Republican, Democrat, you're in the House, Senate, governor, whatever, we're all concerned at what it looks like for this upcoming school year. And we are all actively trying to figure out what it looks like in rural Pennsylvania, what it looks like in urban Pennsylvania, what it looks like in suburban Pennsylvania. I went to Central York in York, PA. And, you know, there's thousands of school districts in Pennsylvania, and they're all different. And we all have to collectively understand. And what I'm taking from this call is that we've got a great foundation of young people that are incredibly well equipped and thoughtful to confront this. And it actually makes me optimistic based on what you see day in and day out in terms of the upheaval and the uncertainty that we're facing, you know, as a Commonwealth and as a country.
So no pressure, but you guys need to figure this out.
No, but no, honestly, the level of these questions and how thoughtful they are, it honestly, it gives me hope. It's optimism, because it's tough. It's tough out there. And anyone, whether it's online or otherwise, that tries to provide a sense of certainty to you, that's not true, because the truth is that no one's seen this virus before. No one exactly knows what it's going to look like a month from now. 3 months ago, this wasn't on really anyone's radar screen, to the thought that we think that we would all be sitting in front of a laptop talking to each other, you know? So a lot's changed. And you as young people are the future. As cliche as that sounds, it's actually true. And your ability to navigate this is going to be baptism by fire. And you will have a war story, so to speak, that's going to be a hell of a lot more interesting than mine going to Ocean City, listening to bad hair metal, you know, when I graduated high school. So to some extent, I envy you, because you will be a lot better prepared in life than I was. And this is an opportunity to really look inside and see what you need to do to thrive in an environment that is unprecedented.
And be really flexible, you know, because the future that you may have envisioned may have just completely changed. And how can you respond to that? How can you find the path? And I'm confident, just being with you guys this past half hour, that you're all equipped to be able to do that.
Humbled and grateful for the time and opportunity that you've given of yourself to allow us to sit with you. So we're really, really grateful. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you so much. I'll now pass it on to our last and final MC, Devan Mangalamurthy.
Hi, my name is Devan Mangalamurthy. From 2019 to 2020, I served as Blue Lieutenant Governor in the PA Youth and Government.
Oh, hey.
I know, it's great to see LT taking a leadership role. It's really heartening. You've said you're grateful. We're equally grateful, I think, to you. And to all the students who have joined in today, who have asked questions and who've made their voices heard. I live only a couple miles from Braddock. I also attend Obama. I'm a graduating senior. And it's heartening to see your vision, which I think you enacted very successfully in Braddock, being brought to the state level and being shared with us. So we really do appreciate that. Is there anything you would like to share with us before we sort of finish things up and head on to our next and final activity?
Yeah, I do actually. I want to share, one, how grateful and impressed I am, but also, guys, like I said, there's no hard and fast answers. Don't be hard on yourselves. You know, this idea that you're going to know exactly what to do or how to go forward, because it's just, you know, there's just so much flux out there. But you guys are going to get through this, and it's going to be an incredible opportunity to make you that much further ahead in terms of developing all these things. And nobody wants this. Nobody is glad that it happened. But I think it's going to ultimately be an opportunity to develop a skill set that is going to serve you well in the long term. And I hope you are, Lieutenant Governor, 20 years ago, telling a group of high school kids, saying, yeah, we got through that pandemic in 20. We powered through that. and it took my life in a different direction. And that's my hope and my wish for all of you is that you all land on your feet, and I know you will. And I just want to thank you for being such thoughtful and committed students during a time of great upheaval.
Well, thank you. Thank you to everyone who supported this. And we're sure you have questions. Lieutenant Governor Fetterman, Second Lady Fetterman, they're two people in a huge state, in a huge government. So our next activity is going to teach you how you can reach out to other elected officials to make your voices heard and to ask the questions you might want to learn more about. So with that, Jonas Cream.
Thank you so much, Devon. My name is Jonas Kareem, and I go to Hershey High School, and I'm the outgoing Speaker of the House for the Pennsylvania Youth in Government program. So now what we want to do is we want to show you guys exactly how you can reach out to others and truly make the most of this situation. As Devon said, you know, we're talking to the Lieutenant Governor and Second Lady Fetterman, but there are a lot more people out there that can help you. So now what we want to do is we want to share a presentation with you about how to turn advocacy into activism. Thank you. And we can go to the next slide now. So the first thing that we want to have everyone understand is we want to know, do you know who your state and federally elected officials are for your specific district? So there should be a poll going out now where you can answer this, and we will see the results in a second. Okay. So here we see 44% know a majority of them, but that still means the majority of people in this group don't know any of them or don't know some of them. So what we're going to do now is we're going to show you guys exactly how it is that you can reach out to these local officials and figure out who they are. So next slide, please. So there are 3 great resources online that you can use to locate your elected officials. The first one that I'm going to explain is the Pennsylvania version of this system. So essentially what it is it allows you to locate your state representative, your state senator, and your U.S. House representative. So to do this, simply type in this link, or you can also look up PA local officials and find this link. And all you have to do is type in your address or locate your county or zip code, and you will be able to narrow it down until you find those 3 people. After that, each person should have a name that you can click on where it will give you their email, their phone number, sometimes even their Facebook, and a bunch of other stuff that allows you to get in contact with your elected officials. So you don't have to, you know, just call them or find their office or anything. And especially in a time like this where you're not able to go to their offices, you can find a way to reach out to them through other sources. The second one is to figure out who your House representative is in the U.S. House of Representatives. And for that one, you simply enter your zip code. Sometimes your zip code will overlap with multiple places, so you will have to enter your address after that. But then you will also be able to find their website where they will have contact information located, and you can reach out to them and, you know, advocate on behalf of whatever it is that you believe. Because we know that there are a lot of people here that didn't get to ask their questions, and a lot of people watching that want to have their questions answered and want to be involved. And the final way is to use this third link to locate our state senators. Senators are a little bit different in the sense that they represent the entire state. So you can reach out to either of them, either Pat Toomey or Casey, and and hope that they get back to you and have your voice heard and really share that. So next slide, please. So our next question is, if you wanted to get in contact with your elected officials, what would be your preferred method of contact? And we'll have another poll for this as well. Okay, so here are the most desirable way, email, which is perfect. So I'm going to pass it off to Emma now, who will explain how to email.
Next slide, please. I do see some familiar faces, but I'll just introduce myself really quickly. My name is Emma Lamoureux. I am a graduating senior at Hershey High, and I am the outstanding editor-in-chief for YMCA YAG. I just want to say before I do go over this, please feel free to screenshot any of these materials if you find them, necessary or you want to keep them in mind. But nonetheless, now that we've gone over how you can find your legislatures and their representatives within our own democracy, we'll go over how to email. So basically, you can find the email addresses of your representatives through those pages, or sometimes they will even have their own personal website that they link their information on. I am, again, part of the 50% that thinks that emailing is one of the best and most effective ways. It definitely opens a great form of communication. But if you do address a representative, please try to, get it right to the point. You want to make sure that you're going over the details while not being too stylistic. You're more likely to have your letters, read if they're not fluff, if we'll say so. Furthermore, you want to make sure that your purpose for writing should be right in your first paragraph. You want to be very clear about what you're writing about, and you can even use specific examples such as other bills to further prove your point. In saying that, also don't try to jam too much into your letter. You're going to want to keep it about a page or so. If you do have more to say, you can address another letter, or you can enclose or, attach materials that you think will help your case. You definitely want to make sure that your letter is not so long that it will not be read, but it's long enough that it will be found interesting and something that, they think is important. But overall, if you do choose to email a representative, please let them know the impact of their vote. That is going to be the most touching detail for them. That is what is going to want them to want to read what you're writing. But yeah, if you guys have any issues, you can definitely, either reach out to people or even thank them for things that they have been putting through during this time if it has affected you or your family or loved ones. But yeah, with that, we will move on to the next method.
Hi, my name's Taylor Coda again, and I was the Gold Lieutenant Governor for PA State YAG. So if you're like me, a part of the 7% that think it's best to call your elected official, let me tell you how to do that, because boy, oh boy, is it fun. So now you're first going to have to find their number. Now, you can do this in two ways. Either you can use the resources that Jonas provided just a second ago, and then you can find their number either on their website or it's listed on the resource. Or if you want to figure out the number of your member of the U.S. House of Representatives specifically with knowing just their name and not having internet, you can call the U.S. House of Representatives switchboard operator at the number 202-224-3121. You say their name, and then they'll give you their number directly so that you can call them. Super efficient, super great. So now while you're calling, you're probably not going to be able to actually reach them. You're going to have to leave a message. So first, you're going to want to remember to be respectful while leaving your message. So what are you going to want to leave in your message? The meat of it. So first, you're going to really want to leave your first and last name. That way you're not just leaving an anonymous message, because that would be a little creepy. The second, you're going to want to give your reason for calling. What's your issue? What are you passionate about? Really lay it out there. And then lastly, you're going to want to give them a way that they can contact you. For example, leave your email, because you don't want this to just be an open-ended thing. You want action to follow up with your request. So yeah, that's how you call your elected official. Now I'll hand it over to Parker.
Oh, sorry. Hello. Can we move on to the next slide? All right. So I am Parker Logue. I am a junior at Seneca Valley High School, and I am the incoming Blue Speaker of the House on Youth and Government. And I am here rocking the 5% who prefer the written letter to their elected official. Some people might think it's archaic, but the only thing better than email is real mail. I spent like 3 minutes thinking of that joke. But anyway, writing a letter to an elected official, it is, still a very valid way to communicate your beliefs and your ideas to, the people running the government. So same as before, use the resources available to you, whether it was the links on Jonas's slide or the phone number on Taylor's, to find exactly who is representing you on the state and federal level. Once you find out their representative or senator's name or address, it is important to maintain a very formal, well-thought-out tone throughout the entire letter. Be very respectful to who you're talking to, Don't be casual. This isn't a casual matter. You should be treating these people with respect and maintain that tone throughout the entire thing. If you are suggesting a real change in policy or something like that, be sure to explain the purpose for your letter at the very beginning, along with the intended consequences of what such a change would be. You want to let these officials know exactly what the purpose of your letter is as soon as possible. And again, just always show respect in your correspondence, and it's pretty self-explanatory. It's similar to email and stuff. Just let them know exactly why you're writing to them and why your change would be beneficial to Pennsylvania. So that concludes basically our, how to contact elected officials. So now we are ready to move on to our call to action. If we can move the next slide. Now, we are calling all upon you to show truly what student advocacy means to you. So choose one of the topics below to address in a video if you feel inclined. The difference that I can make in my community during the COVID-19 pandemic is, or I will make my voice heard during the COVID-19 pandemic by. Your video should be less than 1 minute in length, and you could submit your video to the links present below, whether it's emailing to Ms. Lacente or submitting it to wettransfer.com. Now, you can also share your videos on social media channels with the hashtag student advocacy. Now, this is just an option if you really do want to get your voice out there and let other people know, what student advocacy is about and what, change in the government means to you. So, yeah, you can submit your video by June 5th. Move on to the next slide. All right. Remember, whenever you're making this video to highlight the changes that you hope to make and highlight these things, avoid bright light sources behind you or above you in order to avoid avoid having your face be in shadow. You got to have this as a good video. Avoid bright sun on your face in order to avoid squinting and your face being washed out, with natural light definitely being the best option. When it comes to background noise, do not record in the wind. The camera picks up and enhances the wind sound, and avoid other, extraneous sounds like traffic, music, television, or just any other stuff. If you are presenting this video, whether it's on social media or submitting it, you want it to be a good representation of what you believe. Speak very clearly. Watch the speed at which you're speaking so that the viewers can understand what you're saying. Plan your answer to avoid filler words like ums or likes or pauses. There isn't really much time for you to make your message, so make your words count. And finally, hold your smartphone horizontally, because this shows, it's just how most people watch the video. Keep your camera steady. So yeah, just that calls upon all of you to show what you have learned in this student advocacy session, and just let us know both what you feel about it and what you think could be used to benefit Pennsylvania. So thank you to everyone for, tuning in and, listening to both us and Lieutenant Governor Fetterman and his wife. It is really awesome to see all of you guys showing up here and just taking an experience that a lot of other people probably won't get. We have 65 people on here, which is just really, really great, because that's a lot of people who got the chance to experience what we experienced. So thank you all. If anyone else has anything to say, I think we are ready to close it off now. So thank you. Yeah, and thank you all, and thanks again to the hosts who, planned this out, got us all together. A lot of thanks goes to them. So.
Hi, everyone. It's Caroline. You did a great job. I know the Fettermans were most impressed. And I don't know if Laura is available to make some comments. Laura, are you there?
Yeah, great job, everybody. Very impressed. Always impressed.
I have to second that. I've been tweeting in the background, but you guys were fantastic. I'm telling you, you have a great future in whatever you want to do. Thank you.
Very true.